Hey guys, Lukasz here, and today we're exploring a place called Harajuku, which is a kind of hotspot of youth culture and fashion here in Tokyo. It's a bit of a touristy area as well, and to be honest, it's not one that I very often explore these days, but when I first came to Japan, I would come here often. And during those days, I consider myself a beginner of photography. So today, we're going to talk about how the RICOH GR IIIx is a very good camera for beginner street photographers. All right, now I just want to mention a couple more things. Of course, please remember that there is a hashtag called shootgr_ and then your city name, so shootgr_ Tokyo for me. Please use that hashtag on Instagram when you share your work, so the official RICOH account can see it and then share it, and we can all share each other's work with the GR. And one more thing, please like and subscribe and leave any comments you have below, and I will personally come in and answer them if you have any questions about what we shoot today. All right, so let's get going. So we're gonna head into this big street here. It's called Takeshita Street. And I mean, I said big as in like it's busy, but it's actually very small and narrow. Okay. Now, just before we actually head in there, I wanna talk about why I think this camera, specifically the GR IIIx, is better for beginners. I'll be talking about it as we go, but the first reason is, to me, that because it's a little bit longer lens than the other GR III, it's easier to get, well, you don't have to get as close, I should say. I was gonna say easier to get closer. You don't have to get close because you get a little bit more reach, right? So that actually, to be really honest, for this first bit of what we're gonna shoot today, might be a little bit of a detriment because you can probably tell it's quite packed and so people are very close, right? So I might not need the extra reach, but I think nonetheless, it'll be a little bit easier with the additional reach. Now, quick thing about settings, I always want to tell you my settings of how I'm shooting today. I'm using aperture priority mode, okay, with an auto ISO, with a max ISO of 6400 and a minimum shutter speed of 250th of a second. And right now I'm in f8, but in this darker area, I'm going to go to f4. And then I have snap focus set up to 5 meters, right? So I can snap like that, and that looks really sharp, okay? That was not a particularly interesting scene, but just to prove a point. But I typically don't use snap focus. That's a question I get all the time, like, are you using snap focus? I use it sometimes, like for that example I just gave, but I'm often not using it because I just prefer to take the time to focus normally, right? It just depends on the subject. So, thinking back to my days as a beginner, I would often try to take photos of people like really directly. Okay, it was something that was very scary to me back in those days, I remember. And these days I'm less like perturbed by it. It's not a big deal. I don't feel that anxiety as much anymore. But I also don't shoot this kind of stuff as much anymore. I've kind of gravitated towards other simpler subjects. I don't so much just like walk down the street, take photos of that like interesting person walking towards me on the street. But that's what we're going to do today. And like I said, I think that the focal length on the GR IIIx is a little bit better suited for that. And yeah, and I think that was an example right there. You see, I didn't have to get that close to get a photo of this dude eating his kebab or whatever that was. Okay. And yeah, and so that's kind of the main reason. There's a couple other reasons I'm going to get into, but that's the first one that really automatically, like immediately jumps out at me, is it's got a longer focal length, so you don't have to get as close. That makes it a little bit more newbie friendly because getting close is a bit intimidating, as I remember from those early days of my photography. Okay, I'm gonna get a shot here. Here we go. I like how the guard has the same color pants as the mannequin behind, and I wonder if it came out on camera, like how far away I was. I was quite far from the guy, and he saw me taking his photo, and I made eye contact with him. I smiled. He probably couldn't see it, but whatever. He didn't say anything. The point is, if I was using the 28 and I shot from that distance, the GR III, the old one, the regular one, it would be much wider. I would get so much more of that scene into the shot. And even from where I shot, it was a little bit wide. I could have been a touch closer. But again, taking those extra like 3 or 4 steps towards the subject with the 28mm equivalent would be, I think, a little bit tricky. So therefore, the prime reason this is better for beginners is what I keep coming back to, is the focal length, and therefore the narrower field of view which allows you to which allows you to keep your distance a little bit, right? And you know, people also react differently. I think if you shoot like those people just now, they looked at me, they all smiled, I smiled. If I was probably like, you know, 3 feet closer or 3 meters closer, whatever, with the other camera right there, they might have been more like, whoa, you know, because it's a little bit close, right? So, you know, it varies. On here, let's see if I can get some cool, like just people passing this in this beautiful light. Probably not going to happen. The way people are walking by is kind of, oh yeah, that boy might have been good. Almost good. Let's see here, I might go back to 5.6 because it's a little brighter in this corner. Wow, I haven't, like I said, I haven't been here in quite a long time on this Takeshita Street here in Harajuku. And it's changed a lot. This is being torn down, this is torn down. Like this was not like this, you know, even a year ago. So things are changing dramatically. Now, I said it's easier for beginners, but there is one challenge, is like I alluded to right in the beginning, because it's a pretty narrow street, sometimes people are too close, and because it's just so crowded. And so that's a case where maybe this is actually a little bit harder to use, because you have to constantly be mindful of not getting too close to things. But nonetheless, I think that's a less common challenge for newbie street photographers than it is to be, oh, I'm not close enough, I need to get closer, but that's a little bit scary. All right, so we're gonna go off the street for a little while. We're gonna go over here. All right, so here, we're entering a shrine. This is called Togo Shrine, Togo Jinja, here in Harajuku. And it's a nice little peaceful spot, you know, just literally 50 meters away from the busy crowded street. And I want to talk about another aspect of this focal length that I find it to be a little bit more newbie friendly. And that is this idea that if you have a wider lens like the 28 on the GR, you know, you get a lot more in. It kind of is honestly a related thing to this idea of getting closer, right? Because you're far away, you have to get closer to focus in more on that subject, whatever it may be. But at the same time, it might be not apparent, like actually let's shoot this over here, this is kind of neat. But it might not be apparent when you need to get closer with the wide lens. Because if you're taking a photo of a single person on the street, it's kind of obvious, okay, I want to get closer to that subject to get the subject. But like with this truck here, I love the detail for me that catches my eye is the shadow of the tree. On the truck here, okay. And if I had a wider lens, I would get the entire truck, right? With this lens, I can't get the whole truck, even if I'm standing over there. But that's fine, because I really think the shot here is to just get the texture of the truck itself. That cool silver metal, and then the shadows of the tree on it. But if I wanted the same kind of framing of just the wall there with a 28, I would probably have to be a lot closer. I'd have to be like somewhere around here. In fact, I have the other one in my bag here, so we could give that a shot. I'm not gonna use both too much in this video, but I just want to, like in this case, prove how close I would have to stand. So yeah, if I wanted the whole truck, just the truck I mean, but nothing else, I would have to be about here. Okay. And again, I find if when I thinking back to my beginner days, I probably wouldn't have so naturally done that. I would probably have just shot it from here. I would have just shot the whole thing. And that's not bad. But then you get all this stuff around that kind of, you know, clutters things up. So I feel like it's a little bit harder to simplify your frame, to get a simple frame with a wider lens like this. You have to really learn to move, to really understand distance and perspective and move around. And that's definitely something you should learn. But if you're just starting with photography, it's a little bit daunting and it's easy to make mistakes, in my opinion. Right? That's just what I think. Let's just go in the shrine now. And so this is another example. Focusing on details like this, I find to be simpler with a slightly longer lens, because I can fill the frame with these flags pretty easily. To do that with the regular GR3, not the X, I would have to get really close to this first flag, and the perspective would be very tricky to achieve. Which again, if you're a newbie, it's kind of hard. It's not intuitive right off the bat. Now there's one more thing that is easier to achieve with this camera versus the regular GR3, and that is getting more bokeh. So I'll use this as an example, but we might find a better example somewhere else later. So I'm gonna, let's see here, let's use the red kanji, that looks better. Yeah. And this time let's actually compare again. I'll try with the other one. So I'm gonna put it also on f2.8. And also on macro mode, which is where I had that one, which means I have to get really close. And I mean, it still works. I don't have the other one in front of me to compare. I just find you have to get really super close. And that starts to make things complicated with the perspective, right, when you're that close. So again, it's just, the idea is that it's just a little bit easier to achieve with the other camera, with the GR IIIx. All right, so put this one away again. And we'll shoot a little bit in this shrine, but I'm gonna be pretty quiet, I think, just to not disturb people, because it is a shrine. It's okay if we film, but I don't think I should talk too much. So this is another good example. Like maybe I want to get a photo of, people praying at this shrine, like I am now. And again, if I was using the 28 RICOH GR III non-X, I would have to get a lot closer. And that, again, might be, I feel a little bit tricky in terms of, like social norms and things like that, right? I maybe don't want to be intrusive. Now, some street photographers have no care about this, and I actually these days tend to get pretty close if I want to. I don't have any qualms about it. But again, back when I started, it was a little bit more like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't get too close, And this is actually a case where even today I kind of I don't want to bug people too much unless I really see something beautiful there. I don't want to just annoy people when they're praying at a shrine because it's their own little private moment, right? So it's a good example. If I can be farther back and still get the shot, it's a good thing. I'm going to feel more encouraged to take that photo. So that's why I think, again, a little bit more newbie friendly, right? I know I've said it over the course of the video a few times now, but I'm like really specifically referring to street photography newbie, right? Like I'm thinking of it from the genre of street photography, not from a more general photographic perspective. There's this nice fountain over here, like a purification font where people purify themselves before they enter the shrine. And honestly, they renovated this a few years ago. It used to be different. It used to be a really cool shot you could get here, like with a reflection. But because they put this bamboo structure on top, it's not going to work. But what I am going to try to do is get some close-ups of this like water pouring out here from the bamboo, because it's quite gorgeous. Again, I'm using the kind of macro mode. I know this is not street photography, strictly speaking, right now, but I'm just trying to demonstrate, the things that I like about this focal length, because for beginners, because it's easier to achieve, for example, stuff like this. Hold on a second here. There we go. So what I like doing for a shot like this is, that was pretty good, is that I pre-focus. So I'm not using zone in this case, or sorry, snap focus, but I'm kind of like snap focusing. I just focus on the wall and I hold it halfway, and then I could hold it down like this, and only in the last moment do I lift up the camera to shoot the scene, to shoot the shadows on the wall, because these people don't seem to care too much. But just like the very first guy who walked through, he stopped. If I'm just standing there pointing my camera at the wall, I think it's very likely that people will either not go through because they don't want to disturb my photo, or they'll go around me, like around the back. So I wait, and then I just bring it up to shoot when the moment is occurring. But to make it fast, because I don't want to bring it up and then focus, because sometimes, this is just any camera, the camera will miss the focus, it'll take too much time. Yeah. Guard was telling us to get out of the street, but we were already moving by the time he said that. Anyway, so I like to pre-focus and then, be ready for that shot. So that's my little sneaky technique. This is a video about how this camera is good for beginners. That's not a beginner technique. That's an advanced technique, I would say, but it's very useful. And it's honestly not that hard to learn. It's just something I didn't think of until a ways into photography. In the beginning, it didn't occur to me. Let's see if we can shoot through this little gap here. Oh yeah, there we go. Nice. Nice, nice. This is again a case where I'm going to pre-focus as best as I can. And then I want, there we go. Oh, come on. Oh man, this is so narrow. I'm trying to get him in profile, but he's moving around quite a bit. So yeah, this is again getting a little more advanced, this kind of shot, like shooting through tiny gaps and spaces. But all right, I'm going to give up because I think it'll take too long. But well, maybe I can do it. It's like a little game of hide and seek. Wow. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. One more try. One more try. Okay, I got something. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, let's keep going. All right, so we're here in front of Tokyo Plaza, which, as you can just see, is this building covered in mirrors right behind me here or next to me. And I love shooting on the street corner on a sunny day like this around winter time or in the summer in the late evening because the sun is getting very low in the sky. It's coming at us kind of a, you know, like from the side, and it hits that building. And then because all these mirrors have these different cool angles, it puts light onto the street, but in little splotches. Like there'll be bright areas and shadowy areas all over the place. And what I like to do is I'll underexpose my scene. I'll go to -1 EV. I might even go as low as -2 in a sec. Since we're talking about exposure, I should mention I'm using the multi-segment metering. Let me just make sure. Yeah, multi-segment metering. So I'm trusting the camera to meter, but I'm underexposing by 1. I'm going to go 2 stops. And then I go to f11. That's the other thing. I can go all the way to f11 because, you know, it's so bright here that even on f11, the ISO is only like 100, 200. So I might as well take advantage of the extreme depth of field. Now I could use snap focus. I'm going to set it to 2.5 meters, but I'm going to use the pre-focusing technique that I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to focus on a distance that I like. I'm going to hold the button down halfway, okay, like this, so the little box turns green, and then I'm still holding it halfway. So I just know that when I lift my camera up to shoot in that direction, it'll be already in focus, right? Even between shots. So I'm going to focus. Actually, let's focus over here. There we go. And with each shot that I take, I'm not letting go of the button. I'm still holding it halfway, which means I don't have to focus again and again. So it's like let's get a little closer. It's like an instant custom snap focus. That's kind of how you can think about it. I like to call it ninja focus. Sounds cooler. And going back to the theme of the video, which is that this camera, the GR IIIx, is a little bit more newbie friendly. Again, I find this to be easier while being a little bit farther back. If I had the 28, I'd have to get closer, really close. And it's tricky for a number of reasons. One, as I already mentioned, it's a little bit intimidating to be close. But two, if you get really close, like for example, if I just park myself, we should maybe move over a little in the middle here, but if I park myself near the sweet spot, people will naturally avoid that spot, and so I won't get my shot. I'm going to move now. I'm kind of in the stream of the people here. See what I'm saying? So you get my point. Like, you want to find a position that's comfortable for you. And I find it like a little bit easier to be farther back than to be up close for newbies. That's the idea. That's the overall theme of the whole video so far. I can sum it up as you don't have to get as close. That's basically what it is. Okay. I love the light over here. The subject's not that interesting, but the light is gorgeous. Beautiful. And this is the reflected light that I'm talking about. Just check my exposure now actually on the histogram. I think we're good. I think we're good with -2. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little closer here. I'm gonna pre-focus out over there on that splash of sunlight. Actually, I'll get even closer. There we go. Closer, but not as close as I would with the GR III. Okay. So there we go. And then I want people to walk through this light for me. I'll go to even a -2 here. I was a -1 for a second there. Okay, a couple more people. Shoot the shadows while they're walking away. That also looks really good. Oh yeah, nice shadows there. Beautiful. Very cool. All right, I'll try that again because it's nice. It's worth a try. But I think you get the idea here of what the advantages of this slightly longer focal length. It's not a big change. You think, oh, it's almost the same, but it's big enough that it really changes how you shoot. And I've said that many times in other videos about other topics, but the importance, what I consider when I'm choosing a camera is not technical things or whatever. I care about the way it allows me to shoot. Like, how can I use this camera? That's the most important thing. And with this form factor and this focal length, I can use it a certain way that I think is, was great for me. I love it, but also I think it's good for beginners. There we go. Oh, and now that light is a lot closer. It's moved where it falls on the people's faces. This position has changed. Anyway, I think that illustrates the point. Yeah, this is the kind of scene where we could do a whole video just about this. And now they're walking through the light. Come on. But I'm not looking. So yeah, I think that sums it up though. I think you guys understand why I believe this is a bit of a better camera for beginner street photographers. Basically, it allows you to stay back a little bit, which for a number of reasons it can be tricky to get really close, for reasons of anxiety about getting close, but also about perspective management and framing, etc., etc. I will say though, if you're more focused on like urban landscape scenery, big wide sweeping views of the city, then the regular GR3 is actually better if you're more interested in that route. But I just think back to my early beginner days, I didn't shoot that kind of stuff too much. I didn't really know what I wanted to shoot, and I just sort of shot everything. And I found that the approximately 40mm or 35mm, that like somewhere between 35 and 45, so 40, right on the money, is the sweet spot because it just allows you to manage distance really well. And things look kind of like how you see them with your eye. That's the other thing, right? Which is important. All right, usually we don't get like this close to subjects, right? We usually see them from a bit far back, and that's where this allows it, gives you the reach to get in there. So on that note, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys found that interesting and informative. Of course, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Of course, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. And I will catch you guys in the next video.